Hi, so it's James Uni here. I'm completing a transitional daybook for assignment 2 in Pedagogy and Practice 4. My class context description is for Year 3 at Ashmore State School. There's 23 students in my class, 2 Aboriginal students, 2 Torres Strait Islander students, 3 gifted and talented students, and a number of other students with varying academic abilities. So lesson 1 is an English, HSIE and creative arts lesson, and this is where I get the students to create a travel brochure and then present it to the class. So in this lesson, I've implemented a number of differentiation strategies to suit the students in the class. And the first one I have is having Teddy's SLSO teacher to come and support him, as they're only there for 2 hours a day. And this lesson is the most content-heavy lesson of the day. So they're there to support Teddy through this lesson. I've also altered the environment, as this is very content-heavy at the start of the lesson, so it'll be mainly teacher-focused, and then it will move towards a more student-centered classroom when they're researching and given a chance to show their creative side as when they're researching and creating their brochure. The task has also been modified to suit the students in the class. For Lucas, Teddy, Jared, Madison and Scarlett, they'll be working together to create an extra large brochure. And so they'll be assessed on that, their ability to work together as a team and create that together, whereas the rest of the students will be doing that independently. The gifted and talented students will have extra details that they must add to their brochure, including maps, activities and events. This is just to make the task a little bit more challenging for them. A more real life brochure, I really want the details to match their holiday destination, whether that's the images or the information they put in there. There's a summative assessment, and this is on their ability to create the travel brochure and to make it an accurate and appropriate travel brochure. So that summative assessment is through the observation of their travel brochure. A formative assessment is also implemented, and that's to see whether, there's also through observation, that's to see whether students have designed a well-planned presentation when they present their travel brochure to the class. So lesson 2 is a mathematics lesson, and this is through currency exchange. So we're going to be working with a lot of real-life situations, counting, role play. So they're going to have fake money and they're going to go through different exchanges with their groups, and there's going to be a number of differentiation strategies throughout this lesson also. The first one is ability groups, so they'll be placed in different groups while they are completing the task, and their questions, their task sheets will be different. There'll be 3 different task sheets, and they'll be different, all varying in difficulty. And there'll also be scaffolding for the students that need it on the board for students to refer back to if they had missed any information from the guided part of the lesson. There will also be 3 different types of assessment in this mathematics lesson. The first one is a diagnostic assessment through observation, and that's to see whether students can recall any of their real life situations, whether they've had to receive or give change at any stage, and this is to see whether they can do this, whether they can complete a transaction, receiving or giving change. The next one was a summative assessment, and that's simply to see whether they can complete the worksheet correctly. The final one is a formative assessment, and that's to see whether, that's through observation, that's to see whether students can engage in role play situations where they exchange money and receive or give the correct change. The third lesson is the creative arts lesson, where we read 2 Dreamtime stories, and then students choose an illustration out of either of those 2 books to create their own art piece. This lesson is differentiated for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students in the class. And another differentiation strategy for this lesson is students will be placed in friendship groups, so they'll get to choose who they sit with during this, while they're creating this art piece. Lucas, Teddy, Jared, Madison and Scarlett will be sitting at the front of the class during the books. That's just to make sure that they're receiving the information, that they're concentrating on what we're doing, they're staying engaged, and I can also monitor the students' behaviour a lot easier when they're closer and listening. The gifted and talented students, once they've finished painting their art piece, I want them to present it to the class and talk about what their art piece means within the story that they got it from. And so that's altered for them. The assessments start with a formative assessment, and that's simply to see whether students can engage in the task and whether they can show respect towards the Aboriginal people by listening and engaging sensibly while reading the books. The second assessment task is a summative assessment, and this is through the observation of their art piece, and that's to see whether they can create a traditional style Aboriginal art piece. The last one is a formative assessment through observation, and that's to see whether students can discuss the meaning of their art piece, which is mainly targeted at the gifted and talented students. I've also added a formative assessment just through observation, and that's to see whether students can follow instructions. For example, putting their name on the back of the sheet, hanging up the painting, packing up the paintbrushes, making sure they're washed, and then coming to sit back down on the floor at the end of the lesson. And the final lesson is lesson 4, which is a science lesson. This lesson is the third out of 6 science lessons for this unit, and that's on liquids, solids, and gases. And the first 4 lessons are focusing on solids and liquids. So the differentiation strategies I used for this are the gifted and talented students are asked to name the properties throughout the guided part of the lesson. So the questioning techniques that I've used are varying in difficulty to suit the students that I'm asking the questions to. So that will differentiate for the students, just incorporating more higher order thinking questions for those students. In this lesson, I'll also be incorporating ability groups where they will be receiving a different task sheet for each of the groups. So those 3 different task sheets will vary in difficulty as well. The assessments for this final lesson start with a diagnostic assessment, and that's where the students can recall information from previous 2 lessons on solids and liquids to see whether they were concentrating, listening, or whether they've learned anything, and that's to see whether we can move on with this lesson. So that's at the start. Then there's a formative assessment, and that's to see whether students can use knowledge from previous lessons to list the chemical changes as we're making jelly in this, whether they can name any other chemical changes that they've experienced in their life, whether they've a lot of students have seen water turn into ice, whether they can name other ones like rock can be turned into lava. Finally is the summative assessment, and that's through a worksheet, and the assessment is just to see whether students can complete that worksheet correctly. Finally, there's a formative assessment, and that's to see whether students can mark their own work while the peer and teachers are discussing and displaying the correct answers at the end through their presentation.